The wolf's paws were bleeding into the ash before anyone understood what it had done. It stood at the edge of the village square, breathing hard, its grey muzzle streaked with soot, and not one person moved. Behind it, the fire hissed and died where the grass had been torn away. A trench the wolf had clawed open with its own body. 7 years they had feared this creature, and now it stood among them, shaking, waiting to see what they would do. The village of Alden sat where the pine forest met the meadow, and for as long as anyone could remember, the wolf had lived in the space between. The townsfolk kept fires burning at the tree line each night, and the wolf kept its distance, watching from the shadows with pale, steady eyes. Children were told not to wander past the last house. Merchants walked the road in groups of 3 or more. The wolf became the reason for every locked door, every hurried step after dark. But the wolf was not what they believed it to be. It was old, older than the fear, older than the stories. It had come to the edge of Alden as a young thing, driven from its pack by a hard winter. It stayed because the forest gave just enough to survive. And the village gave something it could not name, the sound of voices on the wind, the glow of distant fires on cold nights. It never crossed the boundary. It never took a single lamb or chicken. But it watched every evening from the same silver boulder at the tree's edge, and its watching was enough to terrify an entire town. A creature that watches without explaining why will always become a monster in the stories of those it watches. And then the fire came, and the wolf had to choose. It started deep in the pine forest on a dry autumn night. By dawn it was racing toward Alden on a hungry wind. The village bells rang out across the meadow. Families grabbed children and buckets and wet blankets. The oldest houses at the forest's edge were already smoldering, their wooden beams glowing orange, and the fire moved faster than anyone could run. The wolf felt the heat before it saw the flames. It could have fled north, where the river cut through the granite hills. It knew that path, had traveled it 100 times in quieter days. But the fire was moving toward the sounds it knew, the sounds of voices, of children crying, of the village it had watched for 7 long years. The wolf turned south, toward the fire, toward the town it had never dared to enter. It ran to the strip of dry grass between the last trees and the first houses, and it began to dig. It tore at the earth with its front paws, flinging dirt and roots behind it, carving a wound in the ground wide enough to stop what was coming. The flames reached the trench and roared, hungry for the houses on the other side, but they found no fuel. The fire pulled back, searching for another path. The wolf kept digging, kept widening the line. The heat singed its fur, and its paws cracked and bled into the soil. When it was finished, it collapsed on the village side of its own trench, chest heaving, and it did not run. It stayed because it had nowhere else to go, and because, for the first time, it did not want to. The silence that followed was louder than the fire had been. The villagers stood in the smoke, staring at the creature they had feared. This bleeding, trembling thing had just saved them all. No one spoke. No one reached for a weapon. A boy named Luca, no more than 10 years old, walked forward through the crowd, carrying a clay bowl of water. He set it on the ground beside the wolf's burned paws. The wolf lifted its head. It looked at the boy with pale, steady eyes, the same eyes that had watched from the shadows for 7 years. Then it drank. Fear makes us see teeth and forget the paws. We build our walls against the thing at the edge, and never stop to ask why it stays, why it watches, why it might care. The wolf at the boundary is not always a threat. Sometimes it is a guardian who never received a name, a protector we were too afraid to recognize. Think of the quiet person you avoid, the stranger who makes you cross the street, the neighbor you have never spoken to. What if they are simply waiting, watching, hoping to be seen? That night, The villagers lit no boundary fires for the first time in 7 years. The wolf slept on the silver boulder at the forest's edge, as it always had. But now there was a clay bowl of water beside it. The door of the last house on the road stayed open just a crack, letting out light.